Dr Jubril. I'm the Medical Director of Southern Shore Hospital. So basically, if you look at the Nigerian healthcare system, it's divided into two sectors. We have the public and the private sector. I work in the private sector, so I'll probably be able to discuss the experience from the view of the private sector practitioners. Around this time last year, we had the first case of COVID, and of course, most of us in the private sector knew that it was just a matter of time. Something was probably going to happen in Nigeria, but we didn't expect the vastness of what happened. We didn't foresee that it was going to be that widespread, and I guess it made a lot of people in the private sector with surprise. However, once we started seeing the numbers coming in, the initial surprise gave way to action and, of course, opportunities for the private sector. It has been a very huge learning process for most of us. And as we all know, pandemics tend to improve and expand medical systems. So I want to say that in a way, the COVID-19 pandemic has really opened up the Nigerian private sector and has shown us that if we set to do things, we can always achieve. And of course, today, Nigeria has one of the lowest mortality rates for COVID-19. And I guess this is probably because of the tenacity of both the public and the private sectors in Nigeria. If you're talking about the public sector, I think one of the major challenges they faced was compensation for frontline employees and also protection. If you look at a state like Lagos State, which was at the front line of the pandemic, they did a marvelous job, and they were able to encourage segregation of patients, whereby any patient diagnosed to be positive during the first wave was transferred to the isolation centers. However, it's difficult to diagnose COVID sometimes because these patients don't come down with classical symptoms. And we had recurrent cases where doctors working in teaching hospitals inadvertently came in contact with positive patients and got infected also. It took a while for the government to compensate these doctors, and that obviously put a dent on their morale. If you now look at it holistically, I would say that both the private and the public sector, especially the public sector, considering the fact that Nigeria is a developing country, of course we're short of funds. The healthcare sector doesn't have the kind of funds that we will wish to have. But regardless, they did a very good job. They did a very good job. And we hope to continue achieving, even in the face of little financial motivation and little investments in healthcare. The thing about the COVID-19 virus is that, unlike Ebola or other infections, it is actually contagious while the patient is asymptomatic. So it is very difficult to control that or curtail it. Yes, you could criticize the initial response. People felt they could have closed down the borders earlier on. But once the infection got to Nigeria, I couldn't fault anybody because they did everything that was required of them. Lagos State did a lovely job. They were able to contain. The Commissioner of Health, even during the first phase of the infection, where we had just one patient, he took the brave step of going to visit the patient in the isolation center, and he stood about 5 meters away from the patient, although people criticized him, but he was passing a message to people not to panic, that if you kept your distance from these patients, they are not infectious. And during the first phase, during the lockdown period, the government spent a lot of money, and they did all they could to control the infection. I don't think they could have done more than that. I always say this, considering the investment in the healthcare sector, considering the challenges facing the country, I really cannot fault them. One of the major problems in the country is the issue of funds. How do you fund healthcare? And there is a mistake I feel that there's been already a mistake in the funding of healthcare sector, whereby the government carries the bill and they try to make it free of charge. And that doesn't happen anywhere in the world. Healthcare is not free. The reasonable way to go about it will be to ensure that every citizen is insured and subsidize health insurance. That way, enough funding can go to the hospitals, and then you can hold on to talent rather than doctors traveling abroad because they are not well paid in the country. However, the mistake has been made. We hope it gets rectified. But concerning the recent pandemic, the government did all that they could. So I really cannot fault them. You could look at that, but then you now have to also look at countries with top-class healthcare systems, and then you probably understand better that COVID-19 is more of a social disease. It's more of a social kind of disease. It breaks through all barriers. So government can only advise. And when you look at these kind of infections, the healthcare is just a part of it in controlling the spread. The social aspect is a major part of it, whereby you have to get the police to enforce lockdowns, you have to create laws, you have to communicate with people through the media. So all in all, the healthcare system itself is just a piece of the puzzle. And even though it is underfunded, it is not, if you're going to control a pandemic like this, it is probably not the most important thing. The most important thing will be leadership. And to the credit of Lagos State government and Nigerian government, to a reasonable extent, they showed leadership. Because if you looked at countries like Brazil, South Africa, United States, where they didn't really show leadership on time, the infection took another dimension, which fortunately for us here in Nigeria, it didn't. So we have to give praise to them.
Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, professional dry cleaners, best in dry cleaning and laundry services that meets the needs of our consumers. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Yeah, for clean wash and quick delivery. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. For clean wash and quick delivery.
Swift Dry Cleaners. Clean wash, quick delivery. Most people don't understand the magic of a perfect skin, the allure of a well-pampered skin. We bounce from skincare products to skincare products, from spa to spa. Looking for that ideal solution. I found the solution. And it's Blemiville Skincare and Spa. My name is Neil, and I'm proud to be a part of the Blemiville family.
Well, malaria, yes, a lot of attention was paid on malaria because, most of the patients that had COVID-19, the first thing they'll tell you is that they treated malaria. So everybody treated malaria. But you look at other diseases like cancer and other general chronic conditions where people would require to see the doctor on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, or like once or twice a year. It was really affected because people were scared of going to the hospital. A lot of people didn't do their checkups. Some people travel abroad for checkup, which I feel isn't the right practice, but they weren't able to travel also. A lot of doctors closed their practices because it was too intimate for them to function adequately without the risk of getting themselves contaminated. So, of course, a lot of other diseases were underdiagnosed, and I hope that with the surge coming to an end, proper practices can come back, and then we can start seeing our patients the way we want to, and they can gain the confidence that they wouldn't catch COVID-19 if they come to the hospital. The vaccine is safe. The thing about vaccines is that it's a technology that has been around for over probably 120 years. The first vaccines were about 500 years ago when we had the plague, and people understood that people who got the plague before, they could go close to the infected people and they were not falling sick. And they've been working on that technology for over 500 years. But the most effective vaccines started coming out about late 1950s and 1960s. That's when we started having generalized vaccination programs and things like that. Now, the safety of vaccines, which we shouldn't even be having that discussion, but because of different theories out there on social media, people begin to panic and say that there's a chip in the vaccine or something like that. And we ask these people that when you were growing up, you took measles vaccine, you took chickenpox vaccine. Why didn't Bill Gates put the chip in those vaccines? So what vaccine, the technology behind the vaccine is they are getting a virus, or they are getting something called the RNA in the virus. And they'll probably encapsulate it with another dead virus and pass it into your system. What they are trying to do is for your immune system to attack what they've put in your system. It is training your immune system to fight COVID when it comes. So when they vaccinate you, your immune system attacks the virus, the dead virus. It is already trained. And when COVID comes, peradventure, if the person gets COVID, the immune system can easily fight it. That is the technology behind vaccines. And now we have a modern technology whereby you don't have to start researching how to kill the virus or how safe it is to put the virus in another virus and things like that. The new technology is basically you're using the RNA of the virus. The RNA is like the genetic information of the virus. Before, they understood that you cannot inject the RNA into people because it causes severe inflammation and the person might die. But they found a way to modify these RNAs. And it's very, very safe. It doesn't affect anything. Now, vaccines, they go through trial process. And there is this perception that this vaccine came out too fast. It didn't. What they did was, instead of doing one trial for 3 months and skipping to the next trial for another 3 months, they did everything simultaneously. So trial 1, 2, 3, 4, they go together. And instead of waiting for 2-3 years for all your trials to run through, in a period of 8 to 9 months, they were able to run through all the trials and determine that the vaccines were safe. Over 40,000 people were used during these trials for each of these vaccines. And there was no major side effects reported. I cannot remember of any fatalities from the vaccines. So these are things that tells us that the vaccine is safe and we shouldn't be worried about it. Ultimately, infections like this, especially viral infections, are mostly managed by vaccination programs because viruses are very difficult to treat. You can only manage the symptoms. So whether we like it or not, I think the country will need to do a better job at educating people and making sure that everyone is vaccinated for their own safety. I feel in the nearest future, most countries will be requesting for vaccination certificate before you visit their countries. And I would advise anybody in Nigeria for their own safety to get vaccinated, because COVID, yes, the surge can go down, but you're probably not going to eradicate it totally. And it will be in your best interest to get vaccinated and protect yourself and your family.
Market just make you go buy fresh palm fruits. When you reach house, you go wash, you go pound, your body go dey pain you, even your fingernails go dey pain you. But make una no worry, make una relax. I get good news for una. Una don hear of Banga fresh palm fruit extract. All you need to do now make you go for the up, open am, take the amount wey you want, put am for your pot. Which soup you wan make? Shey na egusi, shey na ogbono, shey na vegetable, shey na banga. My sister no waste time again, my brother no waste time again. Just go buy Banga fresh palm fruit extract. They go know say you sabi cook and you be better cook.
Banga, come make your food yummy yum.
Distributors needed nationwide. Phone number 081-6397-4447, 080-3564-4436, 070-6663-8213. Banga fresh palm fruit extract.
That is a hoax, actually. It doesn't affect the DNA. The only DNA that was affected is that of the virus. It doesn't affect your own DNA. So what they are doing is they are modifying in fact, it has nothing to do with the DNA, it's the RNA. They are modifying it and passing it into you. Now, what they are passing into the individual, it is not a virus. It has no message to pass to our own DNA or RNA. The message it is passing is to our immune system. It is telling our immune system, look, I am COVID, come and attack me. And your immune system responds to it. However, this vaccine is not COVID per se. It is not infectious. It only mimics the structure of COVID. That way, when the person gets infected, your immune system is already used to fighting COVID and can easily defend you or protect you when it happens. The major problem with infections is that your immune system has to defend you, right? Now, if you get COVID, it might take you about 7 days for your immunity to build up. But if you're vaccinated, you already have that immunity. So you don't need to wait for 7 days. Your immunity is already working from day one and clearing the COVID from your system before the virus starts building up in your system. So it doesn't affect your DNA in any way. It doesn't affect your ability to give birth. It doesn't affect you in the future. It's pretty safe.
iBrandTV. Business first.